In this video, we're going to take a continuing look at UV mapping. So we've selected faces of the crow's wing and did a planar projection, but used the camera for our planar projection to lay out the UVs for the wing. Now I've separated these into two separate sections, and now I want to make sure that they're good. I mean, sure, I can see them here, but do I really know what I'm looking at? Well, it takes a lot of experience and a lot of time knowing what a UV is actually representing based upon our model. But you can already kind of see, and let's just go to a split screen here. Bring up our panel, UV texture editor. Get some equal spacing here. All right, so if I'm looking at the wing, either one of these pieces, these look not as wide as the length of the wing here. This tells me that there's probably going to be some distortion when I apply an image to it. But how can I check? How can I truly know? We open this up. We have a bunch of tools up here. And we have one option here for display UV distortion. If I click on that, I get coloring that tells me what's distorted and what's not. And the color that I want to see is white. I definitely have some distortion here because this is not white. We can further take a look at this by turning on checkered tiles. And we should see those tiles here in our viewport. Now, if you're not seeing them, you probably want to change your renderer to Viewport 2.0. And Viewport 2.0 is now the default inside of Maya 2016. So your version should have it. If it doesn't show up automatically, just make sure you change that renderer type in the viewport window itself. Now I can see that checkerboard pattern, and if you look closely at those checkers, you should see squares. Because if you look over here in the UV texture editor, these are squares. This is a rectangle. That is telling us those squares are being stretched across the surface. These are a little bit more squared up in here. Definitely have some rectangles going on here. Might seem slight, it might seem trivial, but we can make this look a lot better. So what I'm going to do in order to clean this up is select the UV shell. We'll just do one at a time here, and I'll just go to UV, select all those UVs, and back up to my menu here. I want the Unfold UV tool, and that's this guy. So I'm going to click on it, and that automatically unfolded all of the UVs. Now, unfolding is a process where it analyzes the UVs against the local space of my geometry to try to make them match. And you can see it did a pretty good job. We now have nice looking squares here. But I didn't want this to happen on all of the pieces of my model, so I'm just going to undo that. And we have another unfold tool right here that will allow me to paint the unfolding process. And all of these tools are actually painting tools. So I can come in and use the brush just like we would inside any of our sculpting type tools. Then I can just paint across my model, and look at that. It cleans those up. Now the paint tool is really great if you just have specific areas. But again, I'm looking for the whole thing. I'm just going to undo that. Go to Polygons, Unfold, and open up the Unfold options. The option I want to turn off here is this guy right here, the pack. It takes all of my UVs and places them into that 0 to 1 texture space. I'm just focusing on this one section of the wing. So I'm going to turn pack off just by unchecking it, and then I can choose Apply and Close. And that automatically affects just the wing and cleans up those UVs so that now my texture looks correct and that checkerboard pattern is nice and square. Let's look at the back of the model. We've got the same issue here with this guy. I'm going to right click. We'll select the UVs. And now since I set that pack, I can then click my Unfold tool up here, and it will do its best to unfold it automatically. And you can see it goes all white. Select this guy here. I'm going to select the shell. Run Unfold on it. And now it's cleaned up nicely well. And so now we have white, which tells me that there's no distortion, And I've got two sections here that are nice, good wings. So we first needed to turn off that pack. We can then use the unfold selected UVs here. Now you'll notice too that that seemed to work better, a lot to do with the options inside of here. This is set to one iteration where I believe this one here just has a higher amount of iterations to it so that it gets to the end product quickly. You can just keep reapplying the tool and it will increasingly correct your UVs. But this one, a bit more efficient and gets right to the point. So we don't have to keep doing that. Let's take a look at how we would project UVs on another section. Let's look at something like the leg here. We're just going to frame that up. Planar projection is not going to work, but we'll go to UV and we'll do a cylindrical projection. And that wraps a cylinder around it, but obviously that leg is not a perfect cylinder. And you can see from the UVs, we'll move these out over here. That's pretty messy. But if we look at both at the same time, what we can do is grab this manipulator and change it so that it aligns better with the geometry, which will then help unfold these UVs over here. So I'm going to click that red T at the bottom of the cylinder manipulator, and then click the circle to enter rotate. And I'm going to rotate this up, and you'll see that my UVs will start to kind of come together to make for a better UV set. And we can rotate this a little bit more. I'm going to rotate that over just so we get right to there. Now that's still pretty messy. We could probably align this a little bit better. Starting to come together. Okay, right there. So I've got them all kind of contained. Now there's still a little bit of an overlap there, but that's okay. I'm going to let the unfold tool handle the rest of this for me. So I'm going to switch to edge, and I'm going to select this back interior edge. I'm going to cut this. That's basically going to be where the seam would be or where the two pieces wrap back together. With those edges selected, I just chose cut, and I'll go to UV, and then we'll choose unfold. And we'll zoom out. We've got an extra cut in there, but we'll sew that back together. All those tiles trying to update. Let's scale this down. There we go. And now we can see that we've got nice UVs. I didn't have to keep playing with that manipulator. Still a little stretching there though. So let's weld these UVs together here real quick. Now notice what happens when I click on a common edge, the other one highlights. So we'll just select those two there. And I'm going to come right up to here and choose Move and Sew Selected Edges. And now, since I altered that UV shell, I'll go ahead and try that unfold again. And let's scale that down. There we go. And now we are seeing white. It is distortion, but it's also changing direction. So you're going to see a cut just in that checkerboard pattern. And that happens too because we have such low geometry here. But all in all, that is a good UV layout. We're going to stop there, and we'll finish up our UV layout in another video.